It is summer, and I have a very long reading list of investing books that I'm going to read this summer. So, in this episode of Investing Mastermind Podcast, we are going to talk about which investing books are on our list this summer. My name is Signe Lundholt.
And I'm Michelle Markey.
We're going to talk about books because I have a lot of books in my bookshelf that I have not read yet, both investing books, but also all types of other books. So for me, summer is the perfect time for reading. And the reason why it's the perfect time, Michelle, is because it's raining here in the Nordics. Summer equals raining here. So even today, it is pouring down. So I'm going to get a lot of reading in. How about you? You're in a little bit of a better climate region. Are you reading
Yeah.
a lot during summertime?
Well, I like to read sometimes during the summer. It's nice to kick back by the pool or at the beach and read some books, if you have a lot of time to kind of just relax. And a book is a great way to both relax and also advance one's knowledge of investing or financial information to help us be better investors and to help us better manage our finances. So I definitely agree that whether you're inside or outside, you can grab a book or, if you like the digital kinds, or some people like listening to books. So, whatever your way of wanting to advance your knowledge is, we're going to talk about some book ideas that we think could be really beneficial to our listeners as they have benefited us in the past. Like, I'll mention one that I think Sina and I have both read that I think is worth a refresher, and I always recommend it to my friends and family.
So let's get started on the book list. So you guys make sure to take some notes during this episode, and maybe you can listen to some of these books or get some copies wherever you live and have them sent to you before you go on holiday. So Michelle, do you want to share what that book is? Of course, I know it, but also so the listeners know, which book is it that you're going to read that both of us really enjoy reading?
Yes, like one book that I have on my list to refresh on is Invested by Danielle Town and her father, Bill Town. And this book came out in 2018. It's what helped both Sina and I become the kinds of investors following more in the footsteps of Warren Buffett. And I really like this book because it's a combination of Danielle's story of how she was just on the corporate hamster wheel and she was burned out and she wanted to achieve financial freedom, but she didn't know how to do it. That didn't involve getting a heart attack in your 50s, working at a job nonstop. So she wanted to figure out a better way. Like, there has to be a better way than just slaving away at a job for all eternity. And when she finally went to her investor father, Phil, he taught her basically how she should invest. And he's taught many of us how we should invest, as Sienna and I both went to Phil Town's workshop in the past, and we learned a lot from him as to how to invest like Warren Buffett. So I think that it's super worthwhile. And the beautiful thing about the Invested book is it breaks down step by step how to value company stocks that you're considering investing in addition to doing a lot of other homework that we should be doing when we are interested in investing. So before you invest, if you don't yet know how to invest, I think this summer it'd be great to bulk up on strategies of things you should consider as you're researching a company. And what do you think, Sina?
I actually did read Invested for the first time during summer. And the first time I listened to it as an audiobook, but I kind of quickly realized that for this book, you need a hard copy as well. Like you can listen to it as an audiobook because, as Michelle said, it's about also Danielle's story. But then you might want to get a digital copy on your tablet or get a hold of the physical book. Like I have all three. I have the audiobook, I have the copy through Amazon Kindle, and also a physical copy. And the reason for that was because I was listening to the audiobook. I'm in Denmark, so I could not get a hold of the hard copy. So I downloaded a digital copy to my tablet and then was able to, see some of the calculations or similar things that you needed actually the hard copy to do. So that was my approach. But it's such a wonderful book. What I also did is there's 12 chapters in the book, as far as I remember now. It's been a while since I read it, but what I did was I took a year and actually investigated the topic of each chapter into more depth. So month for month, I had a year of going into a certain area and focusing on that. And I actually think that was, so rewarding to look deeper into each of the topics. So yeah, that's what I did, and I recommend doing that. One thing that's on my list that actually also was inspired by Phil Town was, he's always talked about how you should read all the annual letters from Warren Buffett. And a couple of years ago during the Berkshire Hathaway meeting, I actually bought a big book of annual letters that I've read a lot of the
Wow.
letters, but I have not read this book yet. As you probably can see, it's brand new, or
Yeah,
never
from
been touched.
1965 through 2014,
Oh, yes.
all
So
those letters.
it's a big one, and some of the first letters are not no longer online, so you have to read this book in order to read some of the first letters. I'm looking forward to, reading some of those later and maybe revisiting some of my favorite annual letters. Like I do have some favorite annual letters that I'm gonna go back and reread, and then there's, some letters that I didn't quite understand that I could also go back in order to read it again now with my all the time I get more knowledge, and then one day maybe I'll understand what exactly he's describing in those letters. So I'm going to go back and read that. But that's not for audio book, and it doesn't come, the annual letters, you can actually find them for free online. You don't have to buy a book. So if you like free stuff, go to berkshirehathaway.com, read all the letters. They're in PDF files, and you get a free book by just reading all the letters. So you could do that.
Yeah. And the thing is, like they take a while to really digest. So I almost wish there was an audio version of that. Wouldn't that be cool if Warren Buffett read his own letters and you were just sitting there and letting it sink in, the wisdom. So uh it's too bad there's not an audio, but like Sienna said, there are those print and online versions you can obtain. And sometimes some third party sites may have sourced some of the really early letters, like from when it was the Buffett partnership days, even though those are not Berkshire Hathaway letters per se, but there are some that even go back to when Buffett was just running his own fund. So if you want to append to that and start from whenever Buffett first started sharing more publicly released letters, that could be another place to search for online for some of those letters if you're interested in early Buffett, because early Buffett was more Ben Graham style in looking for cigar butt companies. And gradually you could see the transition of Buffett learning more from Charlie Munger and focusing on buying wonderful businesses at fair prices rather than fair businesses at wonderful prices.
Yeah, exactly. A book I'm going to read this summer as well. My husband gave it to me as a present one time, and I haven't read it yet. It was recommended also by Phil Town. Actually, that's why it's interesting. But it's Julian Robertson, who had like his own fund, Tiger Fund, and the book has been recommended by Phil Town. I have a feeling it's one of those books that would also be a great audiobook. Actually, I don't assume that there's going to be a whole lot of technical things in that book. Now, I haven't read it, so I actually don't know, but I kind of, when I see the cover and, read what it's all about, I get a feeling it's more like philosophy or biography or something like that rather than, heavy with material. So I actually don't know if it comes as an audiobook because as far as I remember, it was pretty difficult to get a hold of the book.
Wow.
So,
Mm.
yeah.
Well, that's
So
great. That's really nice your husband gave that to you.
yeah, exactly. But usually actually on my wish list, I try to actually also wish for some investment related thing. I usually don't wish for stocks or anything like that, even though that would probably be the best idea to get presents like that. But it could be I've wished for notebooks or, where I could take some investing notes, like really good quality notebooks, as well as books and things like that for my wish list. And actually, I did write a blog article at one time about what investors could wish for presents. So, but yeah, it's a really nice present, and now I kind of have to read it because it's just been sitting on the bookshelf for quite some time. There's been other books that was kind of spoke to me, and now this one is one of the books I want to read when it rains this summer.
Mhm. And speaking of books people should read, I think that, there are different books that are heavier and lighter for depending on what kind of mood you're in. Like maybe you just want to have something that's a little on the smaller side. And one thing that could be accessible to people, and I've seen a print version of this, but it's also free online, is Charlie Munger's Psychology of Human Misjudgment, which is based on a speech he gave. But there's also some print versions of it that I've gotten before. So it's a very, like, it's almost like a booklet. It's very small. It has a ton of wisdom. It doesn't take that long to get through. And you will be a much better human being, let alone investor, after reading Charlie Munger's Psychology of Human Misjudgment. It's all the things that you should avoid doing and not be dumb. So the way you succeed in life is by trying to not be stupid, and you would think that that shouldn't be too hard, right? But that maybe that's sort of challenging if people don't think about it that way. So I think that people can really benefit from Charlie Munger, who was Warren Buffett's best friend and investing partner and the architect of Berkshire Hathaway. I think Charlie shares a lot about how how psychology informs a lot of our decision making every day, and the more you can have a widespread understanding, like a multidisciplinary understanding of many subjects, that will help you overall in being a better investor.
That's a great one too. Another book on the lighter side that I'm going to read this summer is Tap Dancing to Work, which is written by or collected and expanded by Carol Loomis. And for those of you who might not know who Carol Loomis is, she has been editing Warren Buffett or Berkshire Hathaway's annual letters for many, many years. She's also a journalist, has worked for Fortune magazine, and is highly respected within the investing world. So I'm looking forward to this book. Again, it's Warren Buffett on practically everything. So I do think this one is going to be on the lighter side. It's probably going to be more like a biography, and some of, maybe the articles that she wrote about him and maybe other journalists wrote about him throughout time. But on the cover, it seems like it's one of the more lighter books out there that is also great for summer, because even though I'm going to be sitting inside, probably like last year in July, it was terrible. So my expectations are low for this year. Probably going to be reading a lot of books sitting inside. And even though, I could potentially read books that are heavier, I don't know, in the summer, it just seems that, at least my experience is, I like lighter stuff. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
I agree. I think that makes sense. And not to take on something that your brain has to work a lot on. Like it'd be nice to be able to feel like, you're gaining something, but you're not having to work so hard at it.
Exactly. So I also think that most of the books here that we're talking about here are on the lighter side. There's the annual letters. They're not going to be on the lighter side.
Uh, that
They're
took
going to
me
be,
3 that took me
yeah,
3 years to finish, and I did read some of the letters during the summer, but I took a long time to get through those letters.
me too. Me too. It took a very, very long time. And I'm not even sure, I 100% haven't read all of them. Even though I've started and just went on, I'm pretty sure there must have been some. And I know that Danielle Tan have gone back and read them over and over again, and I admire her for that, because it's tough to get through. So, yeah. All right. Do you have more books that you're going to read
Yeah,
this summer,
another
Michelle?
book that I wanna talk about with how sometimes in investing, there are some established ways you could value companies, and a lot of those use accounting terms and accounting approaches that are based on when companies used to use more capital to make money. Like you think of a brick and mortar kind of business, like a warehouse or like a something that's physical. And a lot of businesses can be like that, but there are also a lot of digital businesses that once they come up with the magical code and people can use it online, it's like rinse and repeat. A lot of businesses collect the software license costs that customers have to pay, especially in businesses. And that's how a lot of companies like Microsoft make money by having a lot of business users pay the fees to use all the Microsoft products in their business application. So a company like Microsoft, how do you value them if they're not a traditional brick and mortar kind of business? And one book that might help us with that is written by Adam Seessel, and the book is called Where the Money Is: Value Investing in the Digital Age. So instead of, say, some valuation techniques that might not give you a full appreciation of how much a tech stock could be really worth, Adam Cecil presents some strategies that we could use, some calculations that give us a method to adjust, like we would say, adjust the margin percentage for some businesses based on how some of their peers are performing and things like that. So there are other techniques. This might be a little bit more of a brain calculation kind of book where it might not be as easy to read by the beach, but if you are having a day inside and you have access to your computer and you want to work it out because you're inspired after reading this book, you can be like, okay, I want to break down the valuation of Meta and Google and Amazon and Apple and see, if you can put some of his advice into practice. So that could be something that people could do if they want to get a little bit more intellectual this summer.
I've definitely taken note on that, Michelle, because in the prep for this podcast episode, you did mention that book, and I was like, sounds super interesting. I haven't read it, so it's definitely one of the books that I'm gonna buy and read. So I'm very excited on that. And all the books that we're talking about here, we're gonna post that also in the description of the podcast episode, so you can find them and see how the different author names are spelled, etc., etc. Because that was definitely one of the names I had to write down. It's the last name is different, and it's difficult to spell for sure. All right, so the last book I want to talk about, it's not within Warren Buffett style investing. It's Tony Robbins' book. I have a little bit of, like, I'm grateful for a lot of what Tony does, educating people about many, many things. He's learned a lot from especially Ray Dalio and also traders. He's been a mentor or a coach for one of the more famous traders out there. So he's written a couple of investing books, and what he does, for example, he's written a book where he interviewed some investors out there. The thing I'm a little bit on the fence about is that usually he's selling some of his own products in these books, but at the same time, there is a lot of good information in it as well. So the reason why I haven't opened it yet is actually because I'm not looking forward to yet another sales pitch, but I'm gonna take what I can as I usually do, and then, just kind of breathe in and read through some of the selling he's usually up to. But yeah, gonna read this one too. If there's
Yeah.
time, there's a big stack. There's a
Mm-hmm.
big stack. I'm not sure I'll be able to read all of those this summer. Maybe we should check in after and then I have accountability and actually get to read some of
Mm-hmm.
it.
Yeah, you can give us a little book report at the end of the summer, Sina,
Yeah.
and we can see if he's still promoting the, say, all-weather portfolio. I think he got from Ray Dalio. Maybe
Yeah.
there's a little bit of that that I've heard of before. So
Yeah,
some
yeah,
people
he's
might be interested in that.
yes, but the thing is that with that all-weather portfolio, yeah, there's actually been some criticism of that particular thing recently. With Ray Dalio, I really respect him. I love also, I've read everything he's produced because it is so interesting about, the cycles that the world is going through and his principles and all of those things. It is so interesting to read, but there's actually been some criticism that his fund has underperformed, and maybe it's not something that private investors can do. What Tony Robbins did was he kind of was allowed to share some of that with people that maybe didn't have millions of dollars to invest and be able to actually invest in Ray Dalio's fund. So what Tony Robbins did was trying to make it more available to other people as well. But yeah, there's been some criticism of that. So, anyways, I haven't been really following along on that because for me, the Buffett strategy is working so well. I'm happy with the strategy. I don't need to make an all-weather strategy where I would have to understand so many things in order to actually do that. It is a super complex strategy as far as, what I've been reading about
Mm.
this type of portfolio.
Wow. Well, with that, I mean, all these books will definitely give people food for thought. You can come to your own conclusions. We're not trying to give you a cheat sheet to, the key takeaways from the book. So hopefully you'll read some of these as well. And if any of our listeners have any feedback for us, feel free to let us know through our Instagram handle, Investing Mastermind Podcast, or any way that you want to get in touch with Signe and I. We're happy to talk about these books with you. And we hope that this will be helpful to people out there, that it will be at the end beneficial, no matter what you ultimately decide to do after reading some of these books. So, with that, I guess we should wrap up the call.
Yeah, we're at the end of this podcast episode, but we'll be back on Tuesday.
Till next time.
If you enjoyed the show and found the content informational, we would be super grateful if you would leave us a review and follow us wherever you get your podcasts so you automatically get new episodes in your feed. We publish a new show every Tuesday.
The contents of the Investing Mastermind podcast are for educational, informational, and entertainment purposes only. None of this is investing advice, and if you need help in your personal situation, please consult with a professional.